sometimes you have someone move out on the morning, you get it cleaned at lunchtime, the next tenant moves in the evening. That's the ideal scenario. The income can be very much up and down. It fluctuates, some very profitable months, some not so profitable months, so your income does go up and down. Occupancy rates have come down, nightly rates have come down as well. Bringing regulation in will get a lot of the amateurs out of the market, and when done correctly, there's always going to be demand for that type of accommodation. In every market, there's always going to be other people providing the service. The key to be successful, to be a successful investor, is make sure. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Property Magic Podcast, in which I'm going to compare and contrast two of the best cash generating strategies, and they are HMOs, houses of multiple occupation, and Airbnb, serviced accommodation, short-term lets. It comes under a number of different names. So let's talk about these two strategies. Now, these are both great strategies. I think they're definitely more advanced. You need to learn how to do them correctly, and definitely they're more business-like and more time and effort rather than just a normal single-let property. However, recognize you don't necessarily have to be the person doing all the work. You can bring team in to manage and do a lot of the work for you, but you need to set up the properties correctly in the first place. So let's talk about each of these strategies. So first of all, HMOs. This is where you take a house, you rent out individual rooms, typically for 6 to 12 month contracts. I think if you do this, you absolutely want to do high-end co-living HMOs, because there is an oversupply of very average, vanilla, boring HMOs. If you have a vanilla, boring HMOs, you're going to compete on price, which is not a good thing. If you have a high-end co-living HMO, you're competing on quality. You're attracting a much better type of tenant who are prepared to pay more, and they generally stay longer in your property. The thing I love about HMOs is the consistency in income. You make a lot of money. You should make at least £1,000 profit per property when you do it correctly, and you can make that pretty consistent income. Of course, you will have some void periods, that's between tenants, but tenants have to give you notice when they're going to leave. You can start advertising the room before they leave, and sometimes you have someone move out on the morning, you get it cleaned at lunchtime, the next tenant moves in the evening. That's the ideal scenario, but sometimes you have a few voids as well. In an HMO, generally you are paying for all of the bills, and so that's got to be factored into the rent. In the same way, in a short-term accommodation, otherwise known as Airbnb or SA or service accommodation, this is where you're renting the property very short-term. It might be for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, or sometimes a couple of months, but it's not on a standard ASC rental contract. It's more on a license basis, so if they don't pay, you can very easily get them out. Now, this accommodation is perfect for holidaymakers, contractors, people staying away from home who don't really want to stay in a hotel, because service accommodation can be more cost effective for them, and also it's a bit more like home from home. Now, in an SA unit, by the way, that could be a studio flat, it could be a one-bed flat, it could be a two-bed flat, it could be a house, it could be a mansion. All sorts of property is suitable for this kind of accommodation. Often the location is very, very important. But the thing about this type of business is it is a business. You're going to have clients who come and have a short-term stay, and the key to making lots of money in SA, Airbnb, is to get repeat customers. It's very important to get really good reviews, because when people are looking for places to stay, they're going to check the reviews. So you want to look after your customers, and you're adding this extra service element. The name service accommodation gives it away. They're not just renting an apartment or a room in a property, they're getting this service. So imagine it's a bit like a hotel. You go to a hotel room, you open the door, the bed's made, the room's nice and clean, you've got a clean bathroom as well. But often this kind of accommodation will have a kitchen, so you want to make sure there's a little welcome pack for them. And so there's more time and effort required, and because of the turnover of tenants, that you need to send a cleaner in, a housekeeper to change the linen, do all the cleaning in between tenants. So there's a lot more activity and noise happening with an Airbnb unit than there is with an HMO, where once they're in for at least 6 months on a rental contract. Now with Airbnb, you can make really good income. And again, it could be £1,000 profit per month for a unit you're renting out. However, the occupation can go up and down. The rates you can charge per night go up and down depending on the supply and demand in the area, and you should absolutely use dynamic pricing to make the most of that. If it's really busy and there's a high demand, you should be putting your prices up. If there's low demand, obviously you bring your prices down to make sure your property is occupied. Unlike an HMO where you should have probably 95% occupancy, with an Airbnb, you might only get an average of 70% occupancy. That's what you should aim for. Sometimes it'll be more, sometimes it'll be less. That's one of the things I don't like about Airbnb. The income can be very much up and down. It fluctuates, some very profitable months, some not so profitable months. So your income does go up and down. HMOs are far more consistent. But still, you can make really good money with Airbnbs. However, there's a couple of important things you need to know. The Airbnb market, until recently, has not been regulated. Now, they've introduced regulation in Scotland, in Wales, and it's coming to England as well. We're not quite sure exactly what it's going to be. We're not sure when it's going to come in. There are things like they're saying you have to be registered as someone operating that property. There have to be certain safety standards, which I think is really good. And I wouldn't be surprised if the safety requirements are very similar to those of HMOs. Now, what this means is, I think a lot of people who are maybe doing rent to SA or maybe just doing it very much part-time, if they have to do a lot of work to that property, they may decide not to do that. And so I think when regulation comes in, there will be a fall in supply of Airbnb and service accommodation units available to rent. That's going to be really good for people who stay in the business because right now I do think there's a little bit of an oversupply. Occupancy rates have come down, nightly rates have come down as well. Bringing regulation in will get a lot of the amateurs out of the market, it will reduce supply, and so rates will probably come up, and I think it'll be an even more profitable strategy. Whereas the last couple of years, I think there's been a little bit of a saturation. Having said that, also in HMOs, there is a saturated market there, but very much standard HMOs. As I said earlier in this video, if you have very high quality, high-end HMOs, you're not competing on price, you're competing on quality, and you'll attract those better tenants. So in both markets, in every market, there's always going to be other people providing the service. The key to be successful, to be a successful investor, is to make sure you're providing better quality accommodation than other people. You'll always attract those slightly more discerning tenants or clients, as we call them in SA, who want to come to your property. If you look after your tenants in an HMO, I've got tenants who've stayed for years and years and years, and they've only moved out when maybe their circumstances have changed. Maybe they've met someone, they're moving in with a partner, or maybe they're relocating because of their work. When you have a short-term accommodation, an Airbnb, it's really important to try and get repeat customers. If you get repeat customers, that's really good because they can come direct to you instead of having to use some of the OTAs, the online travel agents, such as Booking.com and Airbnb, which are a great way of finding tenants initially, but they're going to charge you very high commissions for finding those tenants for you. If you can get repeat customers who come direct back to you, you can offer those customers a slight discount, maybe 5 or 10% off their next booking, so it's good for them, but that's still going to save you money because that discount you're going to give the tenant on a repeat customer is less than you'd be paying to those OTAs in fees to find that customer again. So it's really important to look after your tenants, get repeat customers, and then also get really good reviews from them. So both of these strategies are very profitable strategies when done correctly. It's really important to recognize you don't want to be doing all the work. I have managing agents looking after my HMOs for me. I know people who do Airbnb, but unfortunately they're doing everything themselves. They're meeting guests, they're changing the linen, they're doing the cleaning, and there's only a certain amount of capacity you're going to have to be able to do that. It's going to limit the number of properties you can actually do. So in both of these strategies, please educate yourself, please do them properly, and then bring team in to help you. Many of my clients have their service accommodation units run by virtual assistants. Now, the virtual assistant can't do the cleaning, they can't do the laundry, etc., but the VAs can actually manage the cleaners on the ground who are looking after the properties. So don't think you have to do everything yourself. That's the hard way to do it. That's the way you're going to, maybe earn lots of money but have no time to enjoy that money. Please treat your property investing like a business, systemize it, and get great people in to help you run that business. But with these two strategies, I think it's good to diverse. If I had to pick a favorite, my favorite would be HMOs, just because I've been doing HMOs so long, because I know there's such a consistent income, and when done correctly, there's always going to be demand for that type of accommodation because you're providing affordable accommodation in a great property. People are always going to want that over and above living on their own in a studio or an apartment where they're paying rent and paying all the bills, because living in an HMO can be far more cost effective. There's always going to be a demand for short-term SA as well. However, supply and demand will be affected by things like the economy, will be affected by things like COVID, obviously. So I think whilst it is a great strategy, make sure you don't put all your eggs in one basket. I do hope this has been useful. If you'd like to learn more about successfully investing in HMOs, I have some online training you can benefit from. It's completely free of charge. Just click on the link in the show notes or in the description below the video and come and join that online training all about HMOs to find out how you can add this highly profitable strategy to your property investing portfolio. Click on the link right now. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Property Magic Podcast. If you like this video, please like it. Why not subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notified anytime a new video comes out. Until the next podcast, as ever, I encourage you to invest with knowledge, invest with skill.